Hello, welcome to Royals SportsBeat Live, our weekly interaction with the star reporters and columnists who cover the team. And with you on today's show, you'll hear some audio from Bobby Witt Jr. and Royals owner John Sherman, but mostly you'll hear from our folks. And at the moment, it's just folk. Uh, so we've got Vahe Gregorian in the house. And he's good folk, that's for sure. Happy to have you, Vahe. Need some audio, Vahe. Well, and while Vahe works on that audio, Sam McDowell has joined us. Hey, Sam, what's up?
We don't have audio from Vahe?
We are endeavoring to get Vahe's audio working. Vahe, are you there? Okay, Vahe's going to use sign language, which is great. I get Vahe and Monty Davis, our producer, will work on getting Vahe's very important voice to this show working. Sam is in surprise, and it's great to see you, Sam. You've seen the Royals now for 3 or 4 days, right? You went from the KU NCAA tournament covering KU in Texas, and you were in Arizona for the next several days. So it is great to have you, and um, and I wanted to start the.
I actually went from Fort Worth to Arizona, and I am now in Chicago for KU. So it's been kind of all over the
Jet. Yeah, quite the jet setter you are, Sam. That's fantastic. So, and obviously you're in a suite because I see a couch behind you. So that's
You know what? I'm actually at my wife's here in Chicago. My in-laws live here, so I'm at my father-in-law's place.
excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, this is our second show, right? We did the first one last Thursday. When the season begins, by the way, we will switch over to Tuesdays, which is where this show existed last season. But for now, and while the Royals are playing the exhibition schedule, we'll be coming to you on Thursdays. Um, so, Sam, you were at Surprise Stadium when Bobby Witt Jr. hit the home run that I think landed just about now. It was against the Oakland A's, and so was Lynn Worthy at the game. Lynn, it's great to see you coming at us from Surprise. So we're just getting ready to talk about Bobby Witt Jr. and because it's been 2 shows of Royal Sports Beat Live, and we have to talk Bobby Witt Jr. in greater detail than we already have. So let's start with the home run that he hit on was a Tuesday of this week against Oakland that went way up the grassy bank at the ballpark, and what Bobby Witt said about that stroke and just being a Royal in at spring training. It's I think it's belabors the obvious to say he is the opening day third baseman for Kansas City. And what has been, Lynn, let's start with you. What has been your impression of Bobby Witt's play through, just the Royals have only played 4 games, and I know he hasn't played in all of them, but what's been your impression of Bobby Witt Jr. at spring training?
Well, I would say I think you're correct. I believe it's required by law that we would talk about Bobby Witt Jr. every chance that we get, or at least once in an episode. Um, and yeah, I mean the home run. Actually, I think he tried to claim post game that the wind helped that carry, which I don't think anybody who was there listening to him bought that. But I guess it was just a little bit of his modesty and humbleness showing there. Um, and I mean, I think last year there was one. I'm trying to remember what the total was. It was like 480 feet. I think it was last year in spring training that he hit one. And so, I mean, you could maybe say that maybe that would have only been 450. So I could, if you want to put wind into that, 480, okay. But that one the other day, no, that was crushed. I think really what he was trying to say was, he hit one hard earlier in the game that got caught. And I think he was trying to say the difference between the one that got caught and that one was maybe there's a little wind behind it. But, yeah, I mean, technically right now, I guess if you want to go technically, he's not the opening day third baseman yet because he's not on the 40-man roster, which actually worked out for their favor because he was able to train with the team earlier than everybody else because of, the lockout and everything. But yeah, that's just a roster move right now. So technicalities wise, yeah, he's not the opening day third baseman yet, but I think something crazy would probably have to happen for that not to be the case on April 7th.
So it's just paperwork that's preventing Bobby Witt from being in the opening day starting lineup right now.
Yeah, that and I guess just the that whole you got to earn it, and we don't want to just hand the kid anything, and whatever you want to call that mentality. But because even right now, I mean, I think Mike Matheny probably won't come out and say it, but I mean, the lineup they put out opening day was pretty telling. I mean, when I say opening day, I mean the first spring training game with Nicky Lopez at second, Mondesi at short, Bobby at third. I think it was Santana at first. I think Dozier was the DH that day, and then you had Benintendi, Michael A. Taylor, and Whit Merrifield going around the outfield, and Sal Perez behind the plate. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if that's how the opening day lineup looks.
I think, Blair, one of the other reasons not to announce it yet is because, it like Lynn mentioned, if you're going to announce him as on the roster, it's on the 40-man roster, so it can't come out with the rest of the team being unveiled for opening day unless you wait to make that move. So I think if they made that move on the 40-man now, just last week he was announced as number one prospect. I think there's something to not every week just having him in the spotlight as much as possible. Now, of course, like you mentioned, on Tuesday he puts himself in the spotlight. I mean, on the crack of the bat, you knew it was gone. I mean, the ball sounds differently when it comes off of his bat. I know that's something that people probably say a lot, but it's never more obvious than in spring training when you can watch guys take BP and swing over and over and over again that there's just a different sound when it comes off his bat. I'm most impressed with, how short his swing is for how much power he's able to generate off of it. And, Lynn mentioned his post-game interview after the home run. That was one of the things he mentioned, was that he's really trying to shorten up his swing, yet keep the barrel in the zone for as long as possible. And I know somebody on Twitter had synced up his swing and Mike Trout's. We're probably, at least one step away from him being Mike Trout. But there are some similarities in just how short their swing is, yet they're still able to generate power from it.
I saw that.
Go ahead, Vahe. Half a step from Mike Trout. What do you think, Vahe? Already there?
Can you hear me first? Is it
everybody do this. Yeah, we got you, Vahe.
Our top story tonight is hey, first of all, before I say anything else, I want to tell you one of the things I learned at spring training that I found rather charming, that if Carlos Hernandez approaches you, he'll say, "Hey, I have one question for you." And then he'll say, "How are you?" I saw him do that over and over again, and I think you guys might have already had some observations about him, but he's a pretty friendly guy, and nice to see that out there. And that's my opening gambit. What were we talking about, though?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's hear from Bobby Witt, and this is from Lynn Worthy tape or a video that he took in the clubhouse after the game in which Bobby Witt hit the home run. He describes what he saw, and yes, he addresses the idea of the wind blowing out and how lucky he was just to hit a bomb. So let's go, Money. Let's hear from Bobby Witt.
Last at bat before that hit solid contact, so I was just trying to go up there and do the same thing, see some pitches, and he was throwing a lot of little sliders and stuff, and then he came in and I was able to be on time and got to it. Luck, I think the wind changed a little bit. I think that's where that time, so luckily I was able to get out. Oh yeah, definitely. It's always good, and it was kind of a close game, so it's always good to just kind of help the team, and Brewer hit the homer to go ahead, which was awesome, just seeing everyone in the dugout smiling and everything. So it's always great to see a guy like that have success. Yeah, I'm just trying to simplify it as much as possible, just try to get short and quick as possible and try to stay in the zone as long as possible, because these guys, if they're throwing 100, they're throwing 92 mile per hour sliders, you just got to make contact, it'll go. So just try to put the barrel on the ball, and hopefully good things will happen. Yeah, so this morning we actually worked out a little pop-up priority, so that goes to the staff. They kind of knew what was coming. That's where you really got to listen to the coaching staff, because they know what's going to happen in the game. They just, I guess, have a feeling. So, yeah, we worked on that in early work, and then came out to the game, and luckily the sun was just out of the way of the ball and able to go get it. Yeah, it's just figuring out the shapes of the pitches, and so it kind of helps you just get on playing with it, because there's guys that are throwing from different angles, different velocities. So it's just once you get an at-bat, or we have information on the bats, just figuring out the shapes of it and stuff, it just makes it a lot easier.
Is that something that you focus more on recently? Has that always been something that's been, a focus of yours?
Yeah, a little bit. I just kind of more focus on just what are they throwing. What are they throwing? And once you have the information on what they're throwing, it helps you. So you're just not kind of just going up there, but also just watching like them in warm-up, just seeing what they're doing at bats before, watching like a guy kind of like yourself, what they're doing to them. Maybe it might help. That might be the same way they pitch to you. So just kind of watching the games is a big thing too. I asked if I get one more at bat after that though. He said no. Yeah, well, that was awesome. Just seeing him do that, because we were actually thought he didn't know if he was going to get that at bat, and then he did. So it was awesome. Oh, really? I haven't really checked. He's the man. It's cool.
Okay, a few things here. First of all, as often as we've talked about Bobby Witt, and as many shows dating back to last year as we discussed, the top Royals prospect, I believe that is the first time we have seen him on this show. So it's always great to connect a face with a story, and that's what we did here today. Number two, it speaks to the versatility of one Lynn Worthy, who is doing the interview, taking the video, and then afterwards editing the video, writing the story. That is terrific work by Lynn Worthy. And third, I thought it was interesting, Sam McDowell, when you said the ball sounds differently when it comes off the bat of Bobby Witt Jr. Vahe will remember this. Buck O'Neill used to say the same thing about certain players. Said it about Bo Jackson, and he was saying that in reference to, it reminded me of Josh Gibson and Babe Ruth. So, not to pile any more expectation on Bobby Witt Jr., but heck, you brought it up, Sam. So that's what that's what we'll say about that. Blair,
one more thing about what Bobby said there was, I feel like this may get a little bit Mahomes-like, but we would have focused a lot on a defensive play he made earlier in that game had it not been for the home run, because he talked about that a little bit, about learning from the coaches down the foul line, because he is learning a new position this year. I mean, he's playing third base. He's a natural shortstop, and he made a great over-the-shoulder catch on a foul ball that he had to track with, of course, the netting now. Of course, there's the netting down the third base line deep down.
Yeah, Sam's having a little bit of internet connection issues, but hey, Lynn, how comfortable does Bobby Witt Jr. look at third base? Is that I know we talked last year about how he would be the Royals shortstop of the future. Well, right now he seems to be the third baseman of the future. And how comfortable does he look at that position?
I mean, he's. I think I asked him once. I'm trying to remember if it was the first week, but I know I've asked him before, just sort of not necessarily on camera, but just not just sort of just in casual conversation. He says it's fine. I mean, it's the same side of the infield. If you remember last year, basically the second half of spring training, he was getting a lot of looks at second base because, Nicky was having a rough spring, and it was starting to look like maybe they might force the issue there. But same side of the field as shortstop by being at third base. He got some looks at third base going back to, I want to say, spring training 2.0 on the pandemic season. He got some looks, I think, at the alternate site. And then last year in the minor leagues, he played mostly at shortstop, but also got some time in at third base. So it's not foreign to him. He says it feels pretty natural. I think I said at one point, I remember I brought up the idea of stuff getting to you faster, getting on you faster. And he was like, yeah, but you got more time to make the throw as well. So, I mean, he seems pretty relaxed about it.
Steve, it's great to hear from you. Glad you're checking in. Okay, let's look. It's been 15 minutes on Bobby Witt. I think that's probably enough time. We'll maybe set aside 15 minutes each show for Bobby Witt. But I want to talk about a player who's actually a little bit hotter at the plate right now, and that is Olivares, Edward Olivares. The guy is on fire, right? 7 for 10 in the spring, 2 home runs, triple, swinging a hot bat. And we remember him as the guy who how many trips between Omaha and Kansas City last year? How many times was he optioned, Lynn? Do you remember?
I believe it was 8 during the regular season. So, I mean, that's not counting, when he got assigned in spring training or any of that sort of stuff. So once the regular season started, I think it was 8 separate times being up and having been sent back down to the minors.
Just 8. Okay.
Have you ever seen that happen that many times in a season? I don't remember that.
I feel like it has, but not so. I mean, a couple of people this year, actually, I think in the last month or so on Twitter, at least, we're talking about who was optioned the most last year, because this year there's going to be an actual limit on options. So that's why it came up. And I remember somebody listed, I can't remember who the player was, but I thought there was somebody that got into double digits. And it wasn't with the Royals, it was somebody else. And I feel like you see it more with pitchers, particularly bullpen guys and that sort of thing. When you need a fresh arm, or you need somebody when you're looking for availability on a certain night. But for position players, I mean, that's the definition of that Omaha Kansas City shuttle right there.
Blair, you're probably asking this in as many words, but Lynn, what do you think about what he's playing his ways to?
That's an interesting question. As a matter of fact, I think Salvador Perez, we were talking to in the clubhouse after yesterday's game, and somebody brought up Olivares, and he said it's going to be a tough decision for Skip, as in Mike Matheny, just because, I mean, and the other part of that is everybody's going to say, oh, well, how can he not make the team? I think somebody tweeted at me yesterday. I was like, well, I guess that depends on whether you think it's better or not for him to be able to get regular playing time, and also early in the season how they break up the roster, because it sounds like, I don't think it's been official yet, but the report was that until May 2nd they might have 28 roster spots and be able to use as many pitchers as they want on that roster. So if stands the reason that early in the season it might weigh more towards getting more pitchers on the roster so that you have fresh arms, and so the guys who aren't stretched out, you still have coverage for that. But the other thing is I mean, like, you've got Gold Glove left fielder and center fielder who are probably going to play every day. Whit Merrifield, if he's not at second base, is probably going to be in right field. And then Hunter Dozier probably may get some time out in right field if he's not at first base, where you probably have Carlos Santana. And you also, you'd say DH for Dozier as well, but also the days that Salvi's not behind the plate, he's probably going to be at DH some. So it's not like there's a spot where he's going to be in the lineup every day, or one that's readily evident right now. So if he's a fourth outfielder type, I think maybe the most encouraging thing I saw yesterday was he played center field for most of the game, and he looked pretty good out there. There was times in the last couple of years in the outfield where there's been some adventures on some defensive plays in the outfield, and in Kauffman Stadium that the Royals put a premium on guys who can cover ground, who can make the defensive plays that they need to make. It's going to be interesting, especially since like I say, you have those guys that are already in place. Kyle Isbell started the season last year on the opening day roster. He hasn't gone anywhere. He's and he gives you a left-handed bat. And as of right now, I mean, you still have a guy like, whether they want to have a guy like Ryan O'Hearn off the bench who they can play outfielder or first base and give you a left-handed bat who's got some pop. So they have options. It's going to be a matter of how they, what decisions they want to make early versus long-term, and, what's going to be the best they think as far as him getting, the most out of playing time.
One thing that seems apparent to me is they don't have to worry about depth around the infield just because of the versatility of Whit Merrifield, right? He can play all the infield positions. So when you're looking at what amounts to pinch hitters and guys that can give starters a rest, first of all, you're looking at Gallagher, right? Because you need a backup catcher. But then you're looking at Ryan O'Hearn, Kyle Isbell, Edward Olivares, mostly outfielders, DH types. O'Hearn, of course, first baseman as well. So they do have a little bit of luxury with not having to have that additional player who's middle of the infield guy. But Oliveris, gosh, you'd like to see him hit his way into the onto the roster and get a good solid opportunity after what he went through last year. Speaking of a couple players we just mentioned, what the Royals avoided arbitration with was 6 players, but not with 2. So Nicky Lopez and Andrew Benintendi have not settled with the Royals. What are the prospects of that happening? Seems like the Royals have a history of not letting cases go to arbitration, but it could happen this time. Could it not, Lynn?
Yeah, it could. I mean, and based off of, I think it was the numbers that I saw reported by Mark Feinsand from MLB Network, it sounded like Nicky's numbers as far as what was offered and what asked for are really pretty close. I think it's within like $500,000 if I'm going off the top of my head. Benintendi's was a little bit further. I think it was closer to $1 million. It was maybe 800,000, close to $1 million apart. And so, I mean, the Royals have gone all the way down to, I think Eric Hosmer in 2015 had the hearing scheduled, but then came to a deal on a contract I think was maybe 2 years at that time. So they only one guy, I'm blanking on the first name, but Mauer, I believe, was the relief pitcher who went to arbitration with them. And that's in the entire time that Dayton Moore has been in charge of baseball operations. So they've had one go all the way through the arbitration process, and the Royals ended up winning that case. But other than that, it's been, they've found ways to settle, even if it's gone down to, like I say, with Hosmer, they had a meeting scheduled or the hearing scheduled, and they still came up with a deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if, they still got something done. I mean, like I said, especially with Nicky's feeling like it's so close, I wouldn't be surprised if they still did something there. With Benny, maybe it does go all the way through with Benny. But yeah, I think, like I say, most years they get something done, but I think there's a feeling that it wouldn't be surprising if 1 or 2 did go this year. At least that was the feeling a couple of days ago. And then we see that there's 2 guys who didn't settle yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if Benny still gets there as far as gets to an arbitration hearing.
One player who signed with the Royals, had a nice contract extension with the Royals in recent years, is Hunter Dozier, and didn't live up to that deal in his last year. And Vahe, I know you spent some time with him at spring training and kind of detail his frustrations at the plate. And I thought it was interesting the way he opened up to you. What were your big takeaways from your conversation with Hunter Dozier?
Well, the thing that really stuck out to me was, unlike a lot of athletes, I think the reason he wanted to open up about this was because he really wants fans to understand how much he cares. And that, I mean, in fact, I circled back and talked to him the day after and just thanked him for his candor. And he said he wants people to know that, he might try not to show it on the field, but this means everything to him. And part of what you're alluding to, Blair, is him talking about, how much sleep he lost, and even kind of this quirky place where he was getting home at midnight from games, and the first thing he was doing was getting a bat out in his garage and going out in the driveway and taking swings, against the air at the midnight hour. And at one point he finally just, said to himself, "What am I doing?" And, I laughed when he said that while we were talking. And then I apologized. I said, "I really shouldn't laugh." And then he started laughing. He said, "No, it's pretty funny because it's kind of ridiculous." But you get into these places where you're so far into the rabbit hole that you need a moment to wake you up. And, he also wanted to make clear that, what happened from there wasn't that, he just decided he's not going to work as hard. Part of his problem is his obsessiveness. This happens to a lot of people in a lot of professions where you just can't let go. And in our jobs, I guess we would, figuratively say we're squeezing the sawdust out of the bat. In their jobs, they probably literally are. But he just tried to tell himself, remember what he loves about the game and just play. And maybe most important of all, don't look at what your batting average has been. Look at the day before you, because there were reasons why he got in that hole. And it's not just because he's no good. He's shown moments of, real accomplishment and promise, but he got into bad habits trying to protect the thumb. He should have shut it down for a month. I mean, in hindsight, and but he went with the Kirchhoff thing where you keep typing even when you got like a whole broken hand. So, some guys just don't learn.
I remember him hitting a lot of atom balls last year. Just shots right at couldn't catch a break on hard hit balls, and was just for a while just so unlucky at the plate.
Yeah, and just one thing to add to that, it's really interesting because I saved the bulk of this for another time, but one of the great benefits of being back in the clubhouse is just the opportunities for more casual conversations that just kind of sprawl out. And I somehow got on a tangent with Whit Merrifield, just talking about hitting in general. And Whit's kind of got this mindset where he understands you can hit the perfect pitch at the perfect speed and the perfect place, do everything just right and make it out. And he's also got the mindset that he can say, so what, and go to the next at bat. He actually used that term, so what. And Hunter hasn't really had the same ability as Whit to just kind of move on. But you're right, Blair, that's part of the game too. I mean, even when you start kind of coming out of a funk, if you don't get a couple things to just sort of fall your way, then it just folds into the next.
It was good stuff. It was a terrific story, and nice of Hunter Dozier to just share his thoughts from last season with you. Sam, I was a week ago. We did our first show the day, I think it was the day after Zach Greinke had signed, and so we covered a lot of Zach Greinke. But now we've seen him pitch once, and I loved what he said about observing other Royals starters and using spring training to get to know this club. Royals fans finally remember him in his Cy Young season, but he was gone after the 2010 season, and Salvador Perez didn't come up until 2011. So there is no crossover really between Zach Greinke and Royals that are other Royals that are on the roster. So he has spent some time in spring training getting to know the other starting pitchers. What's the value in that for Zach Greinke?
Yeah, I meant to look up Blair because I saw Tony Pena Jr. If maybe that was somebody he's a coach out here. I wondered if maybe that was somebody Zach Greinke had overlapped with, but forgot to check those dates. He said in his opening press conference, somebody had asked him whether or not he knew the rest of the staff, and he said, not as well as I should. And, it's not really every starting pitcher's job to be an expert on the next starting pitcher's arsenal. But Zach Greinke apparently feels like it's his job. And also, I think he really enjoys that aspect of the job. He likes to scout other players, his teammates. And so what's been funny is he doesn't tell the teammates that he's going to do it. So, Daniel Lynch one day had a live session that followed Brady Singer. So Brady Singer decided to stick around and watch Daniel Lynch throw, and literally sat down before he realized when he turned over that Zach Greinke was already sitting there. And sort of like, what are you doing here? And later he's watching a Brady Singer bullpen. At one point, Brad Keller was throwing a bullpen and looked behind him and saw that Zach Greinke's just sort of squatting there behind his bullpen, getting the best view possible of the movement of his pitches. And kind of, I saw him do it once, which is sort of what prompted me to ask the other starting pitchers about it with Daniel Lynch on Tuesday. And he doesn't say anything to Daniel Lynch, but he says he does talk to the pitching coaches and assistant pitching coaches as he's observing the guy. And Lynch said he's been great as far as eager and willing to answer questions as he wants to ask them. Now, he did say you've got to ask him on a certain level, meaning he doesn't want them to be just sort of the basics of baseball. Lynch is asking about curveball grips. And Greinke told him, you've got to settle on the one you've got the best command of. You're going to be swayed to throw the one that is the nastiest pitch, But what you want to do is throw the one that has the best command. So, when they signed Greinke, they said he was going to help the younger guys. I guess I anticipated it would be a more learn from by example sort of thing, but he's really been hands-on in his first week.
Sounds encouraging to me that he's taken that role and more than just a veteran starting presence. He's providing the presence of a pitcher who's had a successful career and hopes to continue it here in Kansas City. Hey, did either of you guys in your trip to Surprise get to see Amir Garrett pitch?
I did not. No.
Did not.
Okay. Steve asked about Amir Garrett, and we spoke about him last week as well. And of course, my first observation of him is my next observation of him after being a kind of a physical specimen, tall and left-handed hard thrower. He was a college basketball prospect, and just in time for the NCAA tournament, recruited by Kansas among others, and ended up going to St. John. So. Looking forward to seeing what he's about, and he strikes me as the type of guy that'll be in the a candidate for the back end of the bullpen.
I'm interested to see.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just going to say, the only observations I've gotten of him were in the locker room, and he has been interacting with his new teammates quite a bit. He seems to be an outgoing personality. Haven't seen him on the field yet.
I was going to say basically the same thing. He seems like he's really looking to engage with his teammates, and it's whatever that's worth. It's kind of cool to see here in the early going, and we know everything's possible right now.
Okay, I promised you some John Sherman sound. We are not going to get to that this week because Sam McDowell, Lynn Worthy, and Vahe Gregorian were so engaging that we just ran out of space. So we will bring you some John Sherman soon. I thought he was interesting, especially on the downtown stadium question last week, and we will absolutely run that. I want Sam and Vahe to think about this. One of the question that actually didn't come up as a direct question, but John Sherman volunteered it. Said he took his future wife on their first date to Kauffman Stadium. So I want to know from Vahe, Sam, and I'll get this to Lynn as well, if you've ever taken a date to a Major League Baseball game, and if so, what were the circumstances, and did it work out? So we'll get to that in a future show.
That's a cliffhanger, Blair.
All right. Hey, thanks to Monty Davis for producing, and to Lynn, Sam, and Vahe for participating, and to you all for watching and offering us your comments and questions. So we'll do it again next Thursday on Royals Sports Beat Live.